you talked about the INVA structure, invisible infrastructure. There are four
Mhm,
pillars: people,
mhm,
process, technology, and profitability. For the
mhm.
entrepreneurs and the business owners listening, break those four down and why those you believe are really the pillars to success.
Yeah, so we've been a big student of success, and I've been a big student of success. I love to learn. I'm continuously learning, and so I'm looking for those best practices all the time. And so what I found was when I looked back at my successes that I'd had in my career, it really came down to those four things. So when we talk about people, process, technology, and profitability, it's the right people completing the right processes at the right time, supported by great technology, and we actually need to make some money at the same time. Because one of the other things I found about working in corporate and working with publicly traded companies and whatnot, so much of it was about vanity numbers. So much of it was about new customer acquisition and top line revenues and EBITDA and all of those other things. Those are all vanity metrics. If you're not making any money, who cares? And
Yeah,
that was the
yeah.
other thing. I found it was a little bit disingenuous.
And refresh me on EBITDA, earnings before. I always get that wrong. What does EBITDA
Yeah,
stand for again?
earnings before interest, depreciation, and amortization.
Yeah, yeah. So you say typically when you walk into a new client's business, the people are pretty great usually. The
Right.
processes are sort of okay. The
Yep.
technology is usually crappy, in your words.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of times they're not making money, which is why they bring in someone like you in the first place. So
Yeah.
I'm curious, where do you start? Where do you begin? Because to say you could become profitable from day one is pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Where do you start with a new client?
Yeah. So basically, what we do is we help our clients get very clear. Here's where you are today. Here's where you'd like to be 3 years from now. Then we have a unique process where we assess their current people, process, technology, and profitability capabilities. And then we create a plan. So here are the people things you need to do to unlock those 3 year goals, process things, technology things, and profitability things you need to do to unlock those 3 year goals. The reality is, a lot of that is templated. A lot of that is the same across all the different businesses, and we're not unique little snowflakes.
Hmm.
When people say, "Oh, Steve, you don't understand, my business is completely different from anybody else," it's like, aha, okay, we can have a good discussion here. Because the reality is, we all have products and services that we've created that we provide to customers. Money comes in, money goes out. We have suppliers, we have partners that do that. But at the end of the day, you know we use best practices. So, use QuickBooks Online for your bookkeeping, use, Microsoft 365 for email, use somebody like Squarespace for your website, use these folks who they might not be perfect, but boy, oh boy, do they get most things right. And they're continuously improving and they're always getting better. And so then once we have all of those four pillars working in harmony with one another, that's what we call infrastructure. So just like when you walk into your office in the morning, you flick on the light switch and the lights come on, you have that level of certainty in your business because when you add on those new products and services, those new revenue streams, they're going to be higher margin, that they're going to be higher profitability, and how the business is going to react.
Yeah.
That's the fun part.
Let's talk about people for a minute. I know
Mhm.
you're a big believer in the Colby Index, which is a
Mhm.
really cool assessment tool that helps us understand how we all solve problems, how we approach problems. For the entrepreneur or business owner who's not used Colby before, Steve, explain the value in your mind of the Colby
Mhm.
Index.
So, really, the way that we describe it is Colby is a quantitative measure of personal and team success. And I can't say it any more unequivocally than that. I mean, basically, if we're going to be spending any significant amount of time with somebody, if it's a new client, a new partner, a new team member, our family, we are getting their Colby done. So, one of the things I've been very, very lucky to have been a part of some incredible teams, to have some great mentors along the way, to have built some incredible teams. But there was always that inflection point where, say I'd be asking you to join my team and I'd say, okay, Mark, here's the role. Here's what we're expecting you to do. Here's what success looks like. Here's where some potential challenges are going to be along the way. But at the end of the day, I'd kind of have to push you into the deep end. I'd be there to throw you a life ring if you needed it. But at the end of the day, splash, right? With Colby, I don't have to do that anymore. So with Colby, it's a 15-minute online assessment. It was created by Kathy Colby. Oh my goodness, I think it was almost 30 years ago now. I've been using it for about 20 years. A strategic coach introduced me to it originally. And it's basically, the phrase MO, or modus operandi, that
Hmm.
Sherlock Holmes uses. Basically, Colby is your MO. It's how you get things done. It's how you take action on things. And so when I know somebody's Colby, I know exactly how they're going to react in a given situation. And so it's my role then, as a leader and as a manager, to put the people in the right spots and give them all the tools that they need for success.
And because in a small business, it doesn't take too many people in the wrong roles to
Hmm.
really make things not work, right? Because
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, because if you put someone in charge of doing X and it's not their strong suit, it's going to
Hmm.
be painful and it's going to lead to failure and it's going to take time and money and it's going to take you on a tangent, right? So, wow.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like a three-dimensional chess game. Or one of my really good friends, Ross Slater, he was my original coach at Strategic Coach, and he's still a great friend. He's actually Colby certified and has been for a little bit more than 25 years now. And so he's done tens of thousands of Colby discussions and interpretations. And he talks about it in terms of being a bit of a three-dimensional chess game, because in any given situation, we have what Colby measures is what they call the conative side of our brains. So it's how we take action, it's how we get things done, it's how we
Mhm.
process information and whatnot. Then there's your intelligence, and then there's your personality. So basically, in any given encounter, it's kind of that three-dimensional chess game. There's always a little bit of each one of those three. But the interesting thing about Colby is it's the part where we take action, and that's why it's so powerful.
Yeah. So if entrepreneurs listening or business owners listening, if they do just one thing, and that is to put their employees through the Colby, that probably would be super helpful just
Absolutely.
out of the chute.
Absolutely.
So Steve, you say a big turning point for you came when you read a book called Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. You say it really helped you understand profitability for the very first time. The book Profit First basically says when money comes into a business, you put money in the profit account first and then everything else gets paid. And it sounds kind of counterintuitive to how most businesses are run. Explain to people, Steve, the profit first model and why you teach it to all of your clients.
So Profit First was absolutely instrumental. So, I have a commerce degree. I have the accounting courses. I have the finance courses. I specialized in management science, which is basically an applied math degree inside of a business degree. I understand numbers. I didn't understand cash flow until Profit First.
Hmm.
So if you look at traditional accounting and bookkeeping, it's sales minus expenses equals profit. And basically, accounting was created for taxation, right? And so the thing is, when you take sales minus expenses equals profit, when profit comes last, profit never comes.
Hmm.
So what Mike suggested was, let's just switch those two things. Let's take sales minus profit equals expenses. That's a different discussion. And it's basically pay yourself first. But none of us knew how to do it. We've all been told that our entire lives, but how many people actually do it? So that was the power of the profit first methodology. And like you mentioned, it just completely transformed the way that I run my business and how I manage my cash flow. And it's really an entrepreneurial cash flow management system. So instead of being a traditional entrepreneur using what we call bank balance accounting, where you look at, okay, I've got $150,000 in the bank. Oh, great. I can go buy a boat, or I can go on that vacation, or I can buy the new car, or whatever. But meanwhile, we haven't taken into account, well, we need to pay these taxes, and we need to pay payroll, and we need to, we have all these commitments that we've already made, and loans and interest payments and all that other stuff. Instead of looking at that bank balance and having to make 35 or 40 different calculations based on that to figure out where you actually stand, that's where Profit First comes in. And so it's not unlike the old envelope system that your
Hmm.
grandmother might have used, where your grandfather would come in and say, "Okay, here's $1,000," and she would say, "Okay, well, $200 goes into the mortgage, and 200 goes into food, and 200 goes into clothes and fun, and then the rest of it is for everything else." And then, but when your grandmother would go to one of those envelopes, if it was empty, well, she didn't spend anything. And that's the big shift is with the profit first methodology. You just set up those various accounts, and then you have a much better understanding of where you stand in the business.